Russell Westbrook has officially retired from the NBA, and the way he announced it makes this feel less like the end of a basketball career and more like the closing chapter of one of the most complicated and unforgettable careers of the modern NBA. After 18 seasons, the former MVP and 9-time All-Star is walking away from professional basketball. And here's the big question. Why now? Why did Russell Westbrook retire when, just days ago, there was still speculation that he could return for another NBA season? Before we break that down, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because we cover the biggest sports stories with the facts, the context, and our honest analysis. Westbrook announced his retirement on August 12th through a video posted to social media. The video was narrated by actor Michael B. Jordan, and Westbrook's message was remarkably brief. He wrote, "Sometimes you don't even know when you've already watched the end. You had to be there, and now it's over." And that wording is important. Westbrook did not announce retirement because of one specific injury. He did not say that he was medically forced to stop playing. And, at least in the initial announcement, he did not provide one detailed reason, such as family, health, or finances. So we need to be careful here. There is no verified statement from Westbrook saying, "I retired because of this one particular reason." What we can do is look at the timing, his career trajectory, and what was happening around him. Westbrook is leaving the NBA after 18 seasons and 1,301 regular season games. He finishes his career averaging 20.9 points, 8.0 rebounds, and 6.9 assists per game. But those numbers only tell part of the story. Westbrook retires as the NBA's all-time leader in triple-doubles, 5th in career assists and 14th in career scoring. He also won the 2017 NBA MVP award after becoming the first player since Oscar Robertson to average a triple-double for an entire season. And Westbrook eventually did it again, 3 more times during his career. That is an extraordinary resume. But here's where the story gets interesting. For much of the second half of his career, the conversation surrounding Westbrook wasn't about whether he was talented. It was about whether his style of basketball could still fit into a championship-level NBA team. And those are two very different questions. Westbrook was one of the most explosive guards basketball had ever seen. At his peak, he attacked the rim relentlessly, pushed the pace, created shots, rebounded from the guard position, and played with an intensity that was almost impossible to replicate. But as he got older, the athleticism that made him so dangerous inevitably declined. And when the athleticism declined, some of the weaknesses in his game became much more noticeable, particularly his outside shooting and his difficulty fitting into certain half-court offensive systems. That led to some extremely difficult chapters. His time with the Lakers became heavily scrutinized. His time with the Clippers was inconsistent. Then came Denver, where he provided energy and veteran leadership, but ultimately did not remain part of the team's long-term plans. And most recently, Westbrook played for the Sacramento Kings during the 2025-26 season. What makes his retirement especially interesting is that this decision did not appear completely inevitable just a few days ago. In fact, reports earlier in August indicated that Sacramento had explored the possibility of bringing Westbrook back for another season, potentially in a smaller role as a veteran presence around the team. One report even noted that retirement had not been expected at that point. And then suddenly Westbrook announced, "It's over." So did the lack of a guaranteed NBA role contribute to his decision? It's possible, but I want to make an important distinction. We should not say Westbrook retired because nobody wanted him. That would be an oversimplification. The reality is that veteran NBA careers often reach a point where the player has to decide whether another season in a reduced role is actually worth it. Westbrook had already accomplished almost everything an individual player could accomplish. He won MVP. He became a 9-time All-Star. He became one of the greatest triple-double producers in basketball history. He passed some of the greatest point guards ever on the all-time assist list. He scored more than 27,000 NBA points. And he spent nearly 2 decades competing at the highest level. At some point, the question isn't simply, can I still play? The question becomes, do I still want to live the life required to play? And that distinction matters. Because there is a massive difference between being physically capable of playing NBA basketball and wanting to continue through another 82-game season, practices, travel, injuries, uncertainty, and the possibility of being moved from team to team. My personal opinion is that Westbrook's retirement looks much more like a decision about control and timing than defeat. He gets to decide when the story ends. And considering how much of his career was spent being criticized, analyzed, and debated, that may be one of the most important things about this retirement. For years, Westbrook was told he needed to change. He needed to shoot differently. He needed to play differently. He needed to accept a different role. He needed to stop doing certain things. And yet, through all of it, he remained Russell Westbrook. That stubbornness was sometimes his greatest strength and sometimes his greatest weakness. But it also made him one of the most recognizable players of his generation. And I think his legacy deserves more respect than the endless debates about his shooting percentage or playoff disappointments sometimes suggest. Did Westbrook win an NBA championship? No. And that's going to remain one of the biggest arguments against his legacy. But basketball is a team sport, and championships aren't the only way to measure greatness. Westbrook became one of the most statistically unique players the league has ever seen. He played with incredible force. He became an MVP. He became a triple-double machine at a level nobody expected to see again after Oscar Robertson, and he maintained that identity for nearly 2 decades. His retirement also closes the door on an era of NBA basketball. Think about the names associated with Westbrook's generation: Kevin Durant, James Harden, LeBron James, Stephen Curry, and others. Westbrook wasn't just playing against that generation. He was one of its defining characters. And maybe that's why his retirement feels bigger than one player simply leaving the league. The NBA has changed dramatically since Westbrook entered it in 2008. The league became more perimeter-oriented. Three-point shooting became even more important. Positionless basketball became normal. And the explosive, attack-the-rim point guard who could dominate a game through sheer athleticism became less common. Westbrook represented that style in its most extreme form. And now, at 37 years old, that chapter is finished. But there is one thing I don't think should get lost in all of this. Westbrook didn't leave the NBA as a forgotten player desperately searching for relevance. He leaves as the all-time triple-double leader, a former MVP, a 9-time All-Star, and one of the most statistically accomplished guards in NBA history. That's an incredible ending. And perhaps the most fitting part is that Westbrook's retirement announcement doesn't sound apologetic. It doesn't sound like someone asking permission to leave. It sounds like someone saying, "I was there, I lived it, and now I'm done." Was Russell Westbrook's career perfect? Absolutely not. Did he make mistakes? Of course. Did his style eventually become harder to fit into modern NBA offenses? Yes. But was he entertaining? Without question. Was he historically productive? Absolutely. And was he one of the most intense competitors of his generation? There's very little argument against that. So, did Russell Westbrook retire? Yes, officially. As of August 12, 2026, Russell Westbrook has announced his retirement from the NBA after 18 seasons. And as for why he retired, the honest answer is that Westbrook has not publicly given one single specific reason. What we know is that he had reached the end of an 18-year career, was entering an increasingly uncertain stage of free agency and potential reduced roles, and ultimately decided that his story had reached its natural ending. And personally, I think that's the right way to remember it. Not as Russell Westbrook being pushed out, not as Russell Westbrook failing, but as Russell Westbrook finally deciding that he was ready to close the book himself. The Brody era is officially over. And whether you loved him, criticized him, or spent years arguing about him, one thing is certain: you had to be there. And now it's over.